Greetings, fellow Earthlings. It is the Shinigami Art Studio, and today we are going to do an extensive video, and we're going to talk all about mediums because this is a thing you need to know if you're going to paint with stuff. You need to know how the stuff works. This was inspired by a weird situation that I ran into a couple days ago. I went to go mix some paint, and all of a sudden it turned into cottage cheese. And I'm like, what is this? I can't work with this. I don't know why it's happening. I had a conversation with the manufacturer. I learned some things. We're gonna do some science experiments because we still don't 100% know why it happened. We think we know why it happened. We're gonna find out. Maybe we might find out today why it happened because I have a suspicion. So first off, you know, this is about acrylic paints. I don't know anything about non-acrylic paints because I just don't use them. Second off, part two, I'm not a chemist. I barely passed high school, but this shouldn't require any sort of education to understand this because all I'm doing is like adding, I mean, yeah, I paid attention in art class and I paid attention in science class. I didn't give a shit about anything else. But if you want chemistry, you should probably be watching Marco Frazzoni videos or Goober Town Hobbies. You should be watching them in general because they're amazing channels. And I kind of like learn some stuff from there occasionally, but this is not, you don't have to be educated to understand this stuff. All we're doing is we're like, this does this and this does this. I don't really know why. I don't know what happens with the covalent bonds when you mix things. I just will see on, and then the other thing is I want to talk about, I have spoken to several of you, and I will say one of my golden lessons in becoming a maker of things, especially when it comes to Gunpla, is you need to get yourself some SD models and you need to abuse them. Sorry, Kebele, you're the guinea pig today. We're gonna do stuff to you. You're not gonna like it, but it's what you're here for. Sorry, bud. But yeah, so you know you wanna, oh, there goes his wing. You wanna get these guys because if you're working, especially if you're working in Gunpla, is that they're like $7 and they're made out of the same plastic as a Gundam is. And then like, if you know how to scribe on an SD, you can feel comfortable scribing on your full Gundam model that you don't want to screw up because it's a P-Bandai and you're not going to get another one, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with paints. Like if you're not sure how a paint is going to look, yeah, you can paint on a spoon and that's fine. That has its place. But then like if you're actually painting on an SD that has the same, you know, primer and stuff that you do for the real model, you're going to know 100,000 million% exactly how your stuff is going to perform before you hit that expensive model that you don't want to screw up. I mean, you should still take risks and still shoot for the stars, because if you don't make it and you spell stars backwards, it's rats. You'll make it to the rats. But still, just take those risks as well. But again, like I said, I'm going to tell all you guys to start out, if you're in any kind of Gundam stuff, abuse some SD models. Do this. Trust me, because that's what we're going to do today. We have a list of things that we're going to test. So, most of the time, some builder people will be like, you need to use distilled water for your stuff. And I was like, I guess. And then I talked to some people who were smarter than me, and they're like, well, distilled water doesn't have minerals to clog up your airbrush. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But like, I don't use an airbrush yet. I have one over there. I'll learn how to use. But I paint with a paintbrush, so I'm like, who gives a shit, you know? And then I use my tap water. But that's the other day, it was tap water that had the problem. So what we have done is we have started to at least denature the tap water a little bit. This is my tap water that has sat out in the sun for 24 hours. I also put the smallest amount, like a couple of drops of lemon juice, because citric acid will actually like attack and neutralize chlorine, but none enough to really like crank the pH just a tiny little bit in here. Because so this basically, I'm hoping, should be as close to just like regular tap water as possible, because maybe some of these people are like, oh, you need to use distilled water. Maybe they actually had some tap water issues like I did, and that's why some people swear it and some people are like, who cares, right? So this should be the baseline. This should be pH 7 water, hopefully regular old water. I don't have distilled water because they've been out at my grocery store. I don't know why. I'm going to go try to get some today. I should have it, so I'll go try to get some anyway. Regular water, color coded with food coloring, because I'm not going to remember what is what. It's hard for me. The 2 glasses of water, this one I color coded, it is acid water. It has had a lot of lemon juice added, so it should be pretty acidic. This is our base water sample. This would probably be closer to like if you had a water softener in your house, which was our first concern. Upon my conversation with my paint person, they were like, do you have a softener in your house? Because they thought their best guess was like maybe a lower pH water would cause the paint to curdle the way it did. Because I don't use alcohol. That's the other thing too that I mentioned. I'm not going to mix alcohol in this stuff because I just don't have time. But alcohol will make your paint curdle sometimes. So just know that, period. Okay. Anyway, we have some other mediums. I have matte medium somewhere, but I lost it. I don't know where it went. I'm sorry. It was in the plan. We were planning to do matte. My matte medium ran off. Not cool, matte medium. You just ditched me in my time of need. Moving on. Gloss medium. This is stuff, medium by the way, it means stuff that you add to your paint that does things. All paints have mediums. You know, the mediums perform a job of like keeping it a nice mix of pigment and then the stuff that makes it stick to your model and water. And then there are different mediums that will give different effects. Like this guy here is a metallic paint, so there is a metallic medium in there to make it metallic. So I'm not going to do a metallic medium test. It's already here. You're going to see it in this paint. And then you have glaze medium. And what glaze medium does is it kind of makes your acrylic paint more transparent. So like basically it's kind of like when you're in Photoshop and you're like putting your layer at like 50% transparency. It's kind of like putting saran wrap. Like, you know, you ever seen like the holiday, like the green saran wrap and you put it over it and it makes things a little green. So like that's what glaze medium is. It like saran wrapifies your paint and makes it more transparent, so you see the color underneath a little bit better. I also find, and I don't understand why because I don't know stuff, is for some reason when I use glaze medium, I get a really cool effect where it will let me do lighter colors on top of darker colors to a better effect. Probably because I'm hitting it with like 5 million layers of like the lighter color in glaze. It just lets you build up a lighter color on top of a darker color to a better effect. Moving along. This is coarse texture medium. I talked to my good friend Creeping Freely. Jay told me about this stuff. Jesus. She uses it with her projects, so we're gonna try it out today, and I think it will let me make my paint all lumpy and textured, so that's gonna be cool to play with. Anyway, what else we got here? We got modeling paste. Again, the bottle says mix it with paint to do stuff. You can sculpt it and sand it. So we'll, you know, try it out, see what it does. It's another medium, not to be confused with large or small. Speed paint medium is the newer stuff Army Painter is using in their speed paint line that lets you paint like a mini and like make the dark stuff go into the recesses and make it lighter on top. So we'll probably try it in some of the little gadget mabobbers on the robot to see if it gives us a nice variation of the lights and the darks. What else do we have here? Iridescent medium. We're not using you today. I already said that. Well, you know what? Yeah, well, I'll use it with the pink. And I guess the reason I'll do it because I don't know if, I don't really know. We're going to learn together. The iridescent medium, I guess it like makes it a little color shifty. I guess we'll find out. We're going to find out. Obviously, I'm not mixing with the turbo door. I'm going to mix it with the pink because the pink doesn't have any metallic medium in it. It's just pink paint. And then the last thing I'm going to cover is one of my personal little fun things I like to do, which is mixing model glue, which is just, it's Elmer's glue, or they also call it PVA, whatever. I use it a lot when I'm building terrain. I'll mix model glue and baking soda and paint to make like mud or dirt or textured stuff. When you cut it with paint, like if I'm gonna do a terrain, it'll make my paint like lumpy, like dirt. It's pretty cool stuff. But that is probably all of the things that we're gonna test. This list is useless because I lost that guy, and then there's other things that aren't in it, so I don't know why I made it. Let's roll. Okay, moving right along. We're gonna start with the regular tap water. I'm going to use my pipette here, and I'm going to just try to like cut it at like a 50-50 ratio, I guess, to start out. So we're gonna add a little bit of water here. Boom, 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 boom. Give it a little start. Let's give it a little mixy mix. Let's see what happens. It should just basically thin out if it does what it is expected. The Liquitexes seem to not really fight me too much on a lot of things. I don't expect huge behavior changes out of Liquitex. I don't know what different manufacturers use on mediums, but hopefully if I did the right thing, this turbodor should thin out correctly and not lump up, and so far it's looking good. Because I really think I must have had a pH issue, because I don't have my regular tap water to show you, but like my regular tap water, it hit the turbodor and it was like instant cottage cheese, dude. You don't want that in your paints. So like, anywho, let's go ahead and like maybe do 2 layers. I'm gonna shut the video off and do 2 quick layers. We'll talk about it and then move on to the next mix. All right, and here we go. And I forgot a minor detail. I cut my paints kind of thinner So I actually ended up having to do about 5 layers of this, which is, honestly, you probably want more than 5 layers of the way I do it, because as you can see, it's pretty thin. What I end up with, it ends up being about 10 layers the way I mix it, but I do it that way because it gets a nice candy shell when it is done. I also goofed up and didn't mix it well, so there's like a lump of paint up top, so please just pretend that doesn't exist, and then the rest of the wing, you know, you can see. Still, anyway, regular water, it seems to be mixing and cutting correctly, the way I expected it to perform. However, just disclaimer, the Appleseed Turbo Dork I'm using, it says to paint it over a green primer, which I did not do. I painted it over a black, so it will look a little bit different than intended when on a green primer than on a black primer. Anyway, yeah, so check that out. Also, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to cut this paint, because people who say like, here's the magic formula, they're bullshitting you. Don't listen to them. You need to play with the paint yourself and figure that out on your own, because different paints are going to cut in a different way. Liquitex paints, I have to cut far more waterier than regular paints because the medium's thicker. So you just got to play with it yourself. I personally just like to get my paint to a skim milk consistency so I get a nice shell. It does take more layers of paint, and the first layers look doo-doo. Like, these don't look great because, like, again, there's about 5 layers on here, and I usually go for about 10, but my final shell after layer 10 looks really super clean, as if it were airbrushed. That is just a thing that I have learned and you need to know. So the next one we're going to do is going to be acid water. So be right back with, I'm also going to cut this a little thinner to speed it up, because I really do want to have 5 layers be like, this is what it should be kind of thing. So I'm going to actually, like, I put, I think, like 2 drops in there per each water, each paint. I'll do like 1 drop to get it a little thicker. Here we are. This is the acid water. Surprisingly, not a big problem. Again, you know, probably would do more layers for a more sufficient coat, but just to illustrate said point, you know, regular water, super acidic water, again, surprising. Regular water, super acidic water, again. Come on, camera. Back up a little bit there. Yeah, like I said, you know, it didn't really affect the consistency of the paint, which was the big concern. The next round is going to be the one that I think will be the problem round, if I'm correct in my assumption. I think that there might be an issue with basic water and paint. We're about to find out, because now we're moving on to base water and paint. Let's see what happens. Excuse me for assuming, because the base that I thought was going to be the problem must not be, because I don't see a huge difference between acidic water, basic water, on really either of the samples. Acidic water, basic water. Okay, then it must have been some other unspecified chemical in my water. What are you putting in my tap water, South Carolina? Moving on, we'll do a gloss medium. Next in line, we got gloss medium. To nobody's surprise, gloss medium makes things glossy. Now, Turbo Dork probably already has a gloss in it, so you don't see a huge difference. However, Liquitex does not. So you do see a more difference in the shiny. Now, let's talk about something else here that you're going to notice. Maybe you don't notice as much on camera. I noticed as much with my eyeball. I actually had to do like another 2 coats additional to what I had to do. And there's a reason why. When you think about this, remember I told you, I think I told you, acrylics are translucent. Well, what I did was I added a clear medium to my paint. Therefore, there's less pigment per like drop of paint. So this will technically probably need more coats to get the same brightness because it's more transparent. So in some ways, I guess you could say it's almost like what glazed medium pretty much is. The next thing I'll do, because like I do want to show glazed medium, is I'm probably going to take, let's just say probably the second one, well no, let's use the tip because the tip is the control group here. We'll put a little bit of glazed medium on top of these 2 guys, and I'll do the green on the pink and the pink on the green and see how they behave. On to glazed mediums, what do we got here? So as I was trying to explain earlier, and I don't know how well of a job I did, it allows you to do a smooth transition from one color to another. I'm not saying my paint job is the best in the world, but you at least, come on camera, Christ. You at least get not good camera work. Come on, man. There we go. See how it like blends from like the pink to the green there? That's what you want out of a glaze. By the way, Greg from Turbo Dork, if you're watching, check this out, dude. Actually, Turbo Dork does pretty cool with glazes, or does pretty well. I kind of figured it would not play well because of the metallic medium or something, but like, this is an effect I'm going to explore more. Cool to see this. All right, camera. And then we hop over here, and you still do get it, with the Liquitex. This is not my first rodeo with Liquitex and glaze medium. I mean, it is their paint in their medium, but you still do get the kind of transition as you see there from the green to the pink. The more layers you build up, the more of a transition you get. It's fun stuff to play with. There's a zillion uses, especially when you work on like miniatures, like little Warhammer stuff and such. That's a glaze. What do we got next? Ooh, we gotta play with something new. Next, we're gonna do coarse texture medium. We're gonna make some chunky paint. Be right back. And now things are getting fun. This coarse texture medium is cool stuff. I did 2 different things with it though, to kind of illustrate a thing. This is just the mix of the medium and the paint down here, but then I went on top of them and did a layer of just the regular paint on top of it. And I did that because like I like the texture that you get out of this, but I'm like, I don't want to kind of sacrifice color per se. And man, check this out, especially the Turbo Dork with this, you know, the mix and then the Turbo Dork on top. You really get some cool color interplay, especially with the metallics and stuff. I want to play with this with some pearlescent Turbo Dorks because I think you're going to really get some neat effects with this. But it basically like makes sure to paint like chunky sand if you want to add some textures to a project. Really cool stuff. Let's look over here at the Liquitex. Same story. Down low, you know, you got the textures. Now, if you want to keep more of a gritty texture, you probably don't want to paint on top of it with the paint. Where if you don't mind sacrificing a little bit of the texture, go on top of it with some uncut paint to really get that bright, vivid color. This stuff is definitely going to be in my repertoire of materials. Shout out to Creeping Freely for you. Cool stuff. I see why you use it now. Next up, we're going to try out modeling paste. Moving right along, we got the modeling paste here. Same story, just a slightly different effect. You know, there's not like a grit in it, and so it is basically like a lumpy paste. I can see it will be an effective tool for applying texture to projects you're working on. Did the same thing again here where I applied additional paint on top for kind of a brighter color. Same verdict. Sacrifice of texture a little bit for more of a bright color. You know what else might be good to do, but we just don't have time today, is maybe perhaps the move on this stuff is to paint a layer of your paint by itself underneath, and then on top your paint cut with this medium. Might be the way to go. Because like, I mean, again, paint being, you know, translucent, obviously because it's lumpier, you see like the major differences in like color coverage, again, because it is acrylic. That should be avoided probably if we just do a base coat underneath of it. So maybe that's actually the way to go with this, to have your bright color and then not sacrifice your texture as well. Next thing we're going to do is iridescent medium, which will be the last one on the wings. And then after that, we're going to do speed paint medium on probably one of his little vent doodads. And then glue and baking soda, and then that'll be it. Be right back. What you got here with the metallic, the iridescent, what did I use? I don't even remember what I used. Iridescent medium. I had to look at the bottle. As expected, it adds, you know, metallic stuff to it. It's probably pretty much the same as metallic medium, you know what I'm saying? As you can see here, because I, again, cut the paint with another material, it's not quite as vivid as a straight paint, right? With this, if you're going to use it on a model or something and you want it to stay bright, you do need to probably put an undercoat underneath of it because it is more transparent. But it also is reflecting more light because it's a metallic fleck. And this is just light rules that you are going to have it be, it's going to be lighter looking because it's reflecting more light, and it will be closer to white in the color spectrum. So again, you know, you need to add more pink underneath of it to bring it down, unless you want that, because that's what you get out of it, you know. It's fun stuff to play with and to add it to different colors. You just basically make your paint metallic paint. So obviously you're going to see a much bigger difference in the pink because there was no metallic medium in it, whereas there was obviously something metallic in the Turbo Dork to make it metallic, so you're not going to see as drastic of a difference. There is definitely a difference, and this kind of also probably speaks to whatever they put in their paint, is that, you know, with their paint as is, you know, I don't really have as much translucency, so they got something in there that makes it, you know, not have as much of an issue like you would with this. You don't have to do, in my opinion, you don't have to do as much under layers of paint under Turbo Dork, other than like, you know, a couple layers of said suggested color. It just it's part of their magic and their stuff that they got and how it works. On to speed paint medium. Alright, next to last, we cut the paints with Army Painter Speed Paint Medium. This is the hot stuff right now that I see a lot of people using in their projects, and it definitely does a thing. Maybe these weren't the best paints to choose to do with it, but I still feel like it kind of illustrates what it does. Is it kind of makes it work like a multi-in-one kind of deal where it's like you don't need a wash kind of thing. Because like if you look at them, like the lines themselves are brighter in the color. If you were using like a darker color, that would be darker. You know, it would kind of, you know, make darker in the places and lighter up on the top kind of deal, like you would probably want. Also, you would probably use a different base color, but you still kind of see it illustrates what it does. You know, when you're using it with a different paint as kind of intended, it makes the paint lighter on the flat areas, and then it increases in those areas that are like little cracks and crevices to kind of fill in your details, and kind of works sort of kind of like the wash does. Didn't really do much with the Turbo Dork that I can see. I mean, again, you know, it's like you're throwing all these crazy chemicals in the cooking pot. You know, I'm sure the metallic medium, you know, affects how it works, but that's fine. You know, as I said, we wanted to try all these different combinations to see what happened. Not everyone's going to be a winner, you know. I don't even think it's bad. It just doesn't really do what I think it was intended to, basically. And the last thing we're going to try to do is we're going to do a mixture of paint, PVA glue, and baking soda, which is my texture trick. And I guess I'll just kind of like paint him some colors on his head. Poor Kibble, he's getting some abuse today. Be right back. Here it is, the final set of stuff to test is the PVA and glue combo, or PVA glue and baking soda combo. Same situation, I actually painted the top with paint on top of it just to show you, you know, you want to bring it up. It kind of gives you like a happy medium between the kind of two, between not quite modeling paste, not quite coarse texture. Gives you a little bit of different lumpiness. It's what I've used for a while now to do mud and terrain, and you can kind of see why. But it gives you another interesting medium to play with texture-wise. So this is it. This is the great medium face-off of 2022. All these different things that you can try to mix with your paints and get different results, and I hope you learned something today. And this is it. Thanks for watching.